moving on to our next agenda item is our 2021 budget revisions. So Dee Dee. And everyone just get used to Dee Dee because I think she has the next 3 agenda items.
Well, not solo, I have Pam with me. So as you know, Minnesota school districts typically adjust their budget at least once during the school year. We did this last fall, and now we're bringing back a spring revision. As you also know, budgets are developed using assumptions and estimates based on the best information that we had at the time. So about a year ago, we were developing the budget for the current school year. As the fiscal year progresses, more details about the budgets are defined. This year has been probably one of the most interesting, challenging, and difficult budget year to estimate. So things can change, such as enrollment, which you already worked on that for an adjustment last fall. New grants, budgets, whatever are defined. So increases in those expenses and revenues. So tonight, Pam will review the second round of fiscal year 2021, our current school year budget revisions. There's a couple of notable things, and Pam will go over these as well. In the general fund, there'll be the final closing of the sale of property in Victoria, the Cottrell donation, and then also notable in debt service will be the refunding of bonds. And Pam will go over that, and I'm going to turn it over to her. Thanks, Pam.
Okay, first of all, can you see my screen? Good. Okay, we have as Dee Dee mentioned, we have a revision to 3 funds, the general, community service, and debt service. We still have a few unknowns yet related to the federal stimulus dollars. If you remember back in November and December, we revised our budget to include the CRF funds, GEARS, and some of our ESSER funds. And at that point, we did not know that we were going to have a round 2 and a round 3 of stimulus funds. So in this, just in this past week, I've learned that we have to spend all of our ESSER 1 funds before we can spend our ESSER 2 funds. So we've included some of that in this revision. So let's start with the general fund. Overall, we're going to increase our revenue by $4 million, $4,087,422. So first of all, we have student activities, and this will be on both the revenue and the expenditure side. With distance learning and hybrid learning, we just haven't been able to do as many things, and say the student council and the DECA club and those type of things. And then we have targeted services, that's for summer school, after school programs, extended day, extended year type of programs. We haven't been able to start up our after school programs for elementary as early as we usually do. And then we had a smaller summer school program last summer. Then as Dee Dee mentioned, we have had the 2 large increases to our revenue. First, the $2.5 million from the donation to the Cottrell estate that was approved at the February board meeting, and then the second is the sale of the property in Victoria, which is anticipated to close before the end of the fiscal year. Again, both of these items are going into an assigned fund balance until exactly what purpose they will be used for is determined. Then we have a reduction of $724,688, which is for a number of things, all COVID related. Fees, admissions, SAD interest rates, miscellaneous revenue. Our parking fees were down, our events are for admissions and sporting events, all of those things were down. We're having a small increase in facility rental back in our fall revision. We reduced that budget line by $380,000, but that group expects to come out ahead a little bit better now. And then on the, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, on the federal revenue, we're increasing that by almost $270,000. And that's the ESSER 1 and a little bit of the ESSER 2 funds that we think we might spend before the year. And that can be used for items like technology, summer school, mental health. And the last revenue increase is actually reimbursements for repairs from our insurance claims. In the crazy school district UFAR's world of how we have to report things, that is needed to be recognized as revenue and not just netting against the expense, and that's called insurance recovery. The biggest amount there, it's a total of $297, but the biggest chunk was almost $270,000 for a gym floor at Chaska Middle School West. Then on the expenditure side, the first two items were offsetting the revenue, student activities and targeted services. Long-term facility maintenance, we increased that by $199,000. That's just a timing of some mechanical system projects. And so then next year that will be reduced, that budget will be reduced by $199,000. It's just getting done a little bit early. It's just a timing issue. Then our insurance, property liability came in lower than what we had planned in our budget by $93,000. And then with distance and hybrid learning models this year, we didn't need as much in bus monitors, so that was almost $21,000. The next line, $815,000 in savings, is from a number of things. About $200 is from staff layoffs, specifically custodians and facility rental staff. We had $417,000 for salaries and corresponding benefits. We had less lane changes than we typically have, and than we had planned for this year. We didn't have teachers traveling from one building to another where they would receive additional FTE for that, and that's usually between middle schools and high schools, or both high schools. And then it was also due to the use of our CRF funds, our Corona Relief Funds. We put into our application last fall of what we called super subs, substitutes that committed to multiple days at one school. And we paid them with those federal funds through 12/31 when those funds ran out. That was $165,000. Then the rest, $33,000, was just some savings and benefits for people who maybe didn't choose to be on our health insurance plan. Then we had some additional facility rental costs, $18,000 for that additional, offset that additional facility rental that we're planning. And then we've finally we reduced some expenses in the federal special education area. So overall, in summary, total revenue $133 million, total expenses $132 million. Our unassigned fund balance is at 5.71. And just to compare to where we've been, with our fall revision, that was 5.03, and our original budget for this year was 5.02. So we're inching up, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Then the next page is community service. First of all, that has just really some small changes, 300 reduction in revenue and expenses. We were awarded a GEARS grant. That's the governor's, I knew I wouldn't remember, a governor's emergency education relief fund grant for $81,000 for early childhood. So we have the revenue and expenses there. And then just with COVID, this is all COVID related, less programming, less fees, and then of course the flip side, less expenses. And as Dee Dee mentioned, on the debt service, we sold bonds back in October and refinanced or refunded our 2012 and 2013 bonds. And so we have that $46 million sitting in escrow, and that will be used when the call dates come for the two bonds that they refunded. 2012 is in February of 2022, next year, and that's $13 million that will be paid from the escrow account. and then those bonds will be paid off. One less issue out there. And then the 2013 A bonds, that has a call date of February 1st, 2023. That'll be 31 million and some from that escrow fund. And then there'll be one more payment after that for us that will pay on 2/1/24, and then those will be gone. So that's a wonderful thing. And then we had about 158,400 in closing cost refunding fees. That included attorney fees and the closing costs. And then just a reminder, back in October, Dee Dee would have gone through this with when these bonds were refunded, but we were able to save our taxpayers $2,570,500 in interest on refunding these bonds. So with that, it's possible, as we learn more about the ESSER funds, ESSER 2, ESSER 3, we may want to tweak this revision or do another revision before the end of June, but hopefully this is good right now. But if we learn more about what we can use some of the newer funds with, we would ask for, or we would bring that to the board. Otherwise, we'll be asking you to approve this at the April 26th meeting. Thank you.
All right. Great. Board members, do you have any questions? Pam?
Well, just to jump in, I mean, I think it's, it's great that we're in a better position than we had hoped. That's always awesome. I think, obviously we've been hit with some unforeseen adversity this year, but it's also been offset by, we've had some, we have some, kind of exceptional one-time items, that are helping us out here. I think the reality is this is still a difficult time, but we're fortunate to benefit from, the sale of the property and the donation that are, kind of help, that are the reasons that we're in a better spot. We still have some challenges to manage, as we'll obviously we're going to get into later tonight. But so great work, Pam and Dee Dee, and thanks for paying attention to all the details.
But for clarification, the donation and the sale of the land can't be used in the general fund, so that's not part of the reason.
Well, maybe I'll clarify a little more. So they both are in the general fund, but if you'll recall, the general fund has multiple fund balances. And so right now they're in the assigned fund balance, not in the unassigned fund balance. So the mark for the school board is, what is the unassigned fund balance? What is that amount compared to our total expenses? And those two, anything in the unassigned or in restricted fund balance are not part of that total dollar amount of fund balance that's marked against our expenses. Does that make sense?
Yep.
While in the general fund, they're assigned for a separate purpose at a later time. And just like then the restricted is restricted for a specific purpose, such as capital project, long-term facility maintenance, staff development. So I just wanted to make it clear that even though those funds came in, they're not being used in a general purpose. They're set aside for future use. So, okay.
Yep.
And then if I could just, did you have something, Lisa? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So, you heard Pam go through quite a bit of detail on this. Like, as again, what I wanted to say is it's been a challenging year for any finance person to do this by any means, and I'm thankful that Pam is on our team. I know this is part of the reason why she isn't sleeping, is because she's thinking of all these things and as she's trying to sleep, and I know she puts in a tremendous amount of time. So I feel really confident that we have the information that we have today. But as Pam said, we don't have all the information on how those, the rest of the funding from the federal stimulus will affect us. Will it affect us now, or will it be in next year's budget? So stay tuned. We'll have more on that as it becomes available. Thank you.
And that was sort of my point with the ESSER funds. I think that there's a public perception out there that would indicate that, you know, public schools are getting all of this money, and that we should be in a better financial position. And I don't know if people understand how that it's regulated, how we spend that money, when we get it. It's kind of a use it or lose it piece of it, of, you know, money. So thank you for clarifying that. And it is still an unknown, right? Seems like every fund is used just a little bit differently. So I too am super grateful to see. I kind of breathed a little and I saw that 5.71% for fund balance, because that's I mean, it's not enough, but it gives us a little bit of breathing room, and so that's grateful. And you're right, this is just a really challenging year. I mean, money coming in, money that hasn't been spent, and money that you know, some revenue we're saving, or there's just a lot going on. So I hope that this is the last budget adjustment, but I wouldn't be surprised if we had another one. Not to be a killjoy. Angela, did you have any questions?
Yeah, you know, I've got a comment. I appreciate, Lisa, you're bridging the sort of the public perception of the dollars that have been coming our direction, and a little bit of uncertainty about the dollars that end up not being spent on account of some of the changes that we've had to make in this academic year. So thank you, Dee Dee and Pam, for highlighting some of those areas where we have been able to kind of save money, because I think that's an area that a lot of folks out in the community are really curious about. Where are those targeted areas where we actually haven't had as much as expense as we anticipated? And the other thing I'll say is I just want to give Pam kudos too, because as I understand it, Pam is much more than just a bean counter, right? She's excellent with spreadsheets, but she's also a fierce advocate of making sure we spend all those dollars that are coming our way. And that makes a huge difference in the lives of our teachers and our students, right? She is making sure that we are utilizing appropriately, and then accounting for correctly all of those funds that are coming our way, and making sure that there is not a dollar that's left unspent if it's available to us, and trying to get creative. And but not for that, we wouldn't be in a position where we are looking at a mild increase in that unassigned fund balance. So thanks to you, Pam, for chasing down those dollars and, you know, being an advocate for our teachers and making sure that they're making good use of those funds.
I just wanted to highlight the bond refunding. You know, I know not just this one, but we've done several others over the last few years, and it's saved the taxpayers of this district a lot of money to do so. And I think it's one of those things that kind of flies under the radar and people don't realize. So I just wanted to call it out and highlight it. And thank you, Dee Dee and Pam, for being on top of that and you know, putting us in position to save that money. So.
Thank you, Sean, for bringing that up. And can you remind us, at one point we were keeping track of the amount of money we were saving through bonds. What is the running tab?
Well, I think if you go back to when Pam and I first started, it's somewhere around that $19 million. So over 10 years, it's a lot. It's very sizable. I forget, I looked recently at the last 5, but there was a lot of opportunity when we first started for refinancing bonds because of interest rates. So it isn't that we're doing something magical, other than working with our financial advisors to make sure that happens. But that's a great thing to reduce our overall debt service for our taxpayers. So I was just going to follow up, if I may, a little bit on the conversations that have gone on tonight. I don't want you to lose sight of the fact that those fall budget revisions, and we could sometimes summarize maybe all of the revisions. Well, it looks like if Pam could go back to the first page, under the general fund, if you look at the kind of yellowish green colored column under the fall revenue revision, you see an add there of $415,000 in the revenue on the unassigned. What I want to remind you of, that is net of the money we received from CARES. So we received some CARES funding, and Pam might be able to correct me, 2.8 million. But on the flip side, we made an adjustment for the loss of revenue, which almost wiped out all of that money. So there's a lot of moving parts to this budget this year, and I just don't want people to lose sight of the fact that our loss of revenue that due to loss of students is not replaced by any of our CARES funding to date. Now, hopefully, I'm hoping this third round, maybe they'll hear the fact that we need that money to make that up. That would help us a lot. But so Pam does an excellent job of summarizing this, and you had a long review of this back in the fall. But the detail on this page does not show the detail of those fall budget revisions. So I just want to keep in mind there's a lot of different parts that make up this. And yes, we're grateful for the CARES funding. Those CARES dollars or CRF all had to be used for specific purposes. Very little of it could be used for anything new or bridge the budget gap. So, and I know you have all heard that. I just wanted to say it one more time so that those listening in can kind of get a feel for what happened there.
Dee Dee, thank you for that, because I do think people, there's this perception out there that kids are distance learning, so we're not using the buildings, and we're saving all of this money in one area, and they're not really understanding that layoffs cost money too, and people have to come back, and that we're still at a net loss from where we thought we would be. And even though this money coming in is helpful, it also isn't earmarked for future use. We can't just put it in the fund balance and use it for future, correct? And
well, some of it, Lisa, is planned for future, but either for specific purpose or to help out with whatever. But we didn't spend $2.8 million on just taking care of the current budget requirements we had. It had to be for new spending when that came. So, thank you.
any other questions, comments for Dee Dee or Pam? Again, a lot of work, and I'll add my 2 cents. When these funds come out, these ESSER funds, it's not as straightforward as one would like. There's a whole lot of research and digging, and there's just a whole lot that has to be done to kind of figure out how to spend it and when to spend it and how to there's just a whole lot behind that, and I'm not even scratching the surface. So thank you so much for the amount of time that you put onto this, and we're just so grateful that you're on our team. So.
Well, Pam's done all the work, trust me. She's done all the work.
Thank you.